Hello, my wild and beautiful creators. Today we are going to create a collage of a bouquet of flowers inspired by the artist Heather Galler. For this project today, you're going to need a pencil, a marker, a permanent marker, some glue, a few pieces of paper. I have 1, 2, 3, 4. You could probably get away with just using 3. Some crayons, some markers in a bunch of different colors, some scissors, at least 2 styrofoam plates, a washcloth, a sponge, or a paper towel, and a container of water. So go grab all these supplies and we will get started. The first thing we are going to do is cut out the center piece of our styrofoam plates. As you'll see, I have cut off this kind of bumpy raised edge. So now I have a flat piece of styrofoam. I'm going to do the same thing with my second piece. I notice that my edges are a little rough around the edge of this circle. So what I can do now is take my scissors and kind of shape up that edge and make it look a little bit smoother. Remember, this hand is doing all the cutting and this hand is doing all the work by turning and rotating my plate. Now I have 2 flat circles and I'm ready to add a design of a flower inspired by Heather Galler onto each of these circles. You can use a regular pencil like this. I'm going to be using a mechanical pencil, but you'll see that there's no lead that is pointing out because all I need to do is press down onto the styrofoam and make what's called an indentation into this piece of styrofoam. The first thing I'm going to do is draw a small circle on the middle of the styrofoam. And since I want this work to be kind of abstract and whimsical, I don't care if my circle is perfectly round. In fact, I actually really like the fact that it's not a perfect circle. The next thing I'm going to do is add some pattern to the inside of this circle. So I'm going to take my pencil and just press down. And as you can see, if you rub your finger across your styrofoam plate, you'll see that part of this is pushed down. That is called an indentation. We want to make sure when we draw on our plates that we are really pressing down on it with our pencil or pen to make this impression. The next thing I want to do is maybe add some round little petals coming around this circle. So I'm going to go up and down. Same thing over here. And I'm going to start turning my piece of styrofoam so that it's easier for me to draw that shape. The first layer that I draw isn't going to be too deep of an indentation. Now that I've drawn this, I'm going to go back over it a second time and press down a little bit more just to make sure I really got into that styrofoam. I'm rotating my circle. Your flower does not have to look exactly like mine. In fact, I would love it if yours looked a little bit different than mine. Use that creative brain you've got. Come up with something really cool. I think I'm going to add another circle around this. So I'm slowly going to draw. Again, I do not want that circle to be perfect. Ooh, how boring would that be? And we'll go around again and make sure this is pressed down nicely. I want to add some kind of pattern around here to make this look a little more full. I want to fill up this space as much as I can. So now I'm going to come out here and just draw some straight lines coming all the way out to the edge. And there we go, I have filled that space. Now I'm going to draw my second flower right here. I want to start with that circle in the middle again. Remember, it's not going to be a perfect circle, and I like it that way. And instead of polka dots on the inside of this one like I did here, I think I'm going to do some stripes. And then I'm going to add some of those round flower petal shapes. And if you don't have a mechanical pencil to do this part, I promise a regular pen or a pencil works just fine for this part. You just really want to push down in that styrofoam. And then I'm going to add a circle around here. And then for the edge, I want to do this shape again. So I'm going to come up and down. If you have a hard time drawing curved shapes on your styrofoam, then you can just draw a bunch of straight lines and create a flower out of some straight lines. That would be really cool too. Remember, your flower does not have to look just like mine. Gonna add a little detail coming around here just for fun. Okay, I have 2 flowers ready to go. Now the next thing we're going to be doing with these is some print making, which is super fun because you can color on these and print with these over and over again. So the next thing that you are going to need for your flowers is going to be your markers. When you color on the surface, you're going to see that it's going to look like the surface of your flower is staying a bit wet because you're coloring directly on top of the styrofoam. That is good because after you finish coloring this, you're going to actually print that marker that you have colored onto your styrofoam onto a piece of paper. So you want to make sure you color the whole flower. I'm going to color this one yellow right here. And this is the really fun part too because you get to be super creative. You can do any colors you want for your flowers. Don't worry about trying to color inside those little lines that you've drawn. Those are actually going to show up as white lines when you print with these. Do make sure that you don't touch your finger on top of where you colored or it'll smear and get on your finger. So just hold on to the edge of your plate. On this last part right here, I'm kind of going to just barely hold the edge of my plate because I don't want to touch it with my finger and smear that ink. One down, one to go. Now I have 2 flowers that are colored. Here is where the real fun starts. I'm going to take one of my pieces of paper and I'm going to cut it in half with my scissors. And then I'm going to see how much paper I need I've got some space right here, so I don't have enough room for 2 flowers to be printed here, but I'm gonna save this half for something else. So I'm gonna set that to the side. And one more here. So now I have 2 pieces that my flower fits on, and then I have these 2 extra pieces I can put off to the side. Now you're going to need your washcloth, sponge, or paper towel, and you are also going to need a container of water. Sit your colored plate off a little bit to the side. And you want to wet this paper, but just a little bit. You don't want to get it soaking wet. If you do that, the paper's going to rip. You just want it wet enough that it feels a bit damp. That's good enough. I'm going to take my paper, pick it up gently with the wet side. I'm going to flip my paper over and come down onto my colored plate. Now, once I put it on my plate, I can't pick it up and move it. It's got to stay there. I'm going to use this hand to hold my paper still, and I'm going to take my other finger and gently rub. And this is already super magical. You can kind of start seeing this print come through. Now I'm going to hold with this hand and use this other hand to smooth it out. I don't want to push too hard on here because I don't want to rip my paper. But I'm going to keep rubbing with my finger, making sure that that ink is on there. And now I'm pretty sure all of my ink has come through because I can see it through my paper. Here's the magic. Pull my paper up. Ooh, isn't that a beautiful print? Here's the really fun part. Now that this print has been pulled off of here, I can take my wet paper towel or sponge or washcloth, clean off my plate, and then make sure it's dry. And now I can color this entire plate with a totally different set of colors and pull another flower print. So let's set this to the side. Let's try out this purple one. Take my washcloth, get it a little bit wet, wet my paper. That should be good. Plate with the ink facing up, wet paper facing down. Here we go. Hold it still. Rub with my other finger. You don't want to get this paper too wet or it will rip. Looks like my print has come all the way through. Pick up. Woo! Isn't that beautiful? Clean off my plate with my wet and dry. Now these are going to be used for my collage where I'm going to make a bouquet of flowers. So if I want to use another flower in here, I can, or I can just stick with these 2. I think I want one more. Ta-da! So we are going to be creating a collage of a bouquet of flowers. We have our main flowers, we have some leaves and greenery, and then we have the vase that these flowers are in. We also have a table that the vase is sitting on, and then we have our background. So far, we have created our printed flowers right here. The next thing that we are going to create is going to be some leaves. For the leaves, we're going to be using that extra paper that we cut off of. Remember, we had the halves of papers and we had that extra paper. We're going to be creating leaves on these extra pieces of paper. So go ahead and grab those now and some markers. So we have our printed flowers, and we're going to let those just sit to the side to dry for a little bit, because we will eventually be cutting out these edges, but it's a little difficult to cut wet paper. So we're going to let these dry while we work on our leaves. Now, if you look here in this picture right here, I have some smaller leaves, I have some longer branches, and then I have some leaves kind of coming out from the sides of the flowers. All of these are fine. You could do completely just a few little leaves like this. You could do a variety of shapes and sizes. It is your bouquet of flowers, so it's 100% up to you. I'm going to be using a marker for this, but crayons work great too. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw right here on my paper a shape kind of like a rainbow or a frowny face. And then I'm going to do the same thing underneath. I'm going to start right here at this point, come down, curve, and back up. This is an oval that's kind of been really squished and pointing the ends, and that's called an ellipse. So this shape is an ellipse. For this leaf, I'm going to color just really loosely. I don't want to make it too dark colored because I want it to look like it's got some light kind of shining on it in different areas. So I want to actually leave a little bit of white showing on my leaf. Now I want to draw a smaller one. So again, start with that shape. You come up and over and right here and down. It also looks a bit like a football. I'm going to draw one more right here so I can use all my space. There we go. I want to add some veins to my leaves. So for that, I'm going to use a black marker. And I'm going to just come right down the middle. Again, kind of like a football. And then I'm going to curve some lines up like this. I want to make sure those veins meet on the veins meet on the other side right here. So I'm going to touch here and curve up. Here's my line in the middle. And here's my veins in my leaf. If you don't want your leaf to have these veins, by all means do not add them. Maybe this one I'll just go without and it'll be plain. I want to add a different piece right here. So I'm going to add a long leaf right there like that. Color it in. And then maybe a smaller one right here. And if you don't like these leaves and you want to just make up some totally different leaves, I think that's fabulous. Go for it. You don't want to draw any leaves that are too teeny tiny, or it's going to be really difficult to cut those out later. So I've got a nice variety right now. I've got some big leaves, little leaves, and some kind of odd shaped ones. The last thing that I want to add is one of these pieces of greenery that's kind of coming out like this. So for that piece, I'm going to come up and kind of curve. I'm going to turn this little point into a leaf like this. And then I'm going to come up kind of like I was doing the veins in my leaves over here. And these little lines, I'm going to add that curve to turn it into an ellipse and make it a leaf. There we go. There we go. And now I have my variety of leaves. Get your cutting skills ready to go because we're going to be cutting all of these out. I usually like to take my scissors and just kind of cut apart if I have more than one thing I need to cut on a piece of paper. I'm going to just kind of free these up like that. And then remember, this hand just cuts and this hand does all the work. So I'm going to start here, cut, and I'm turning this leaf with my other hand. I'm going to cut that piece off, turn my leaf, and cut. There's one leaf. Pick this one up. Make sure you're being really careful with your scissors and taking your time. This piece is going to be a lot of work. Whew. You can take all these pieces and they can just go straight to the trash. You won't need them anymore. And here's my final piece. Now I have my leaves ready to go. If you would like more leaves than this, you can totally make more. If you want less, that's fine also. We're going to put our leaves off to the side, and now we're going to cut out our flowers. Now we have all the pieces for our collage. So the last thing we need to do is draw our vase on a table, and then we are going to glue all these pieces down in a collage to create a bouquet of flowers. So the next thing you need to do is get your piece of paper and a pencil. Now we are going to draw the vase on our paper, which is going to hold our collage of flowers. I'm making sure my paper is vertical. It's straight up and down. I'm going to come about to the middle of the paper and then down just a bit, and I'm going to draw a horizontal line. Now I'm leaving quite a bit of space on either side of this line. The next thing I'm going to do is come to the edge of this line and come in at a diagonal. Same thing here, in at a diagonal. The next thing I'm going to do is add a round shape underneath right here. I'm going to trace it with my finger a few times just to get an idea for where I would like for it to go. I'm going to start at this corner, come around, across the bottom, and back up. The next thing I'm going to do is add that really interesting checkerboard print. Heather Galler is famous for adding this to her vases. She loves to add kind of black and white geometric designs, which makes it really interesting and makes her colorful part of her paintings really pop. So that's what we're going to add right here. We're going to draw that kind of checkerboard chessboard. The first thing you're going to do is take your pen or your marker or crayon, start at the top and go straight down. It's like you've cut your vase in half. Scoot over just a bit, straight down. And come right here, straight down. Do the same thing over here. These are vertical lines, straight up and down. I could probably add a little one right here and maybe right here. Now we've added our vertical lines going across. The next thing we do is it needs to add some horizontal lines. Here, straight across. I'm trying to keep my lines almost the same distance apart, but I'm not getting too crazy about the measurements. It doesn't have to be perfect. Now we've drawn our vertical lines and our horizontal lines. This is where the fun begins. We are going to have to color every other block black. So if I start at this corner right, or this square right here, I'm going to color this whole thing black. I'm taking my time, going along the edge. And for this part, you do want to color thick and juicy. So this square beside it is white, black, white, black. Okay, next box stays white and then black. Now here's where it gets a little bit tricky and you have to kind of take a break and think for a minute what makes the most sense. So I'm going to look right beneath this black box here. I want to leave that white and the next one over is going to be black. So it needs to be white above and black below. So underneath the black, white, black. You're making sure every other box is colored black. White, black. Now I'm going to take a moment and think. So if this box is white, you guessed it, this one's black. Whew, that was a lot of work to color that vase, but wow, how cool does it look? So right now our vase is kind of floating in space, but we want it sitting on a table. So instead of doing a line directly beneath my vase and coming across here, I'm going to move up a bit and draw a straight line out. So now it looks like my vase is actually sitting on a table. I've drawn a line right here, so I'm going to kind of float over my vase, start here, and go back over. Now my vase is sitting on a table. Here's the fun part where you get to kind of start arranging your flowers now in your vase. So I'm going to take all these flowers that I've cut out. I'm going to start moving them around and seeing what I like best. I want to make sure that I'm filling this space up here with my flowers. And it's okay if part of it covers over your vase. They're kind of spilling over your vase. That's kind of cool too. If a little bit of it hangs off your paper, even better. Okay, I think I like this setup for my flowers. Before I glue them down though, I'm going to start moving around my leaves and seeing where I would like them to fit in. Okay, I think I really like the look of that. So now I'm going to get my glue, twist it open. If you have just a regular glue stick, that works perfectly fine too. If you don't have glue but you have tape, you can attach these to the paper with using tape. That's fine also. I'm going to take my piece of paper, flip it over, add just a tiny bit of glue to the edge. You don't need a lot of glue. Slide it in here. Pat it down. Oops, that one kind of got a little bit underneath there. That's okay. And I kind of like tucking things behind my flowers. You want things to overlap and kind of move around. Makes it a bit more interesting. Just do a few little dots of glue. You don't need to get crazy with your glue because then it's just going to get everywhere and make a mess, and we don't want that. Slide it a bit under there, give it a little pat. Around the edge with my glue. You don't even need to put glue in the middle. As long as you get around the edges, that is good enough. Pat. Oops. Sometimes it's hard to tell which one's the front and which one's the back. Here we go. I've already kind of glued this flower a little bit to this leaf, so I'm just going to turn up the edge and press down. And same thing with this one, it's kind of glued underneath that flower already, so I'm just going to add a little bit of glue right here, pat it down. And if some of your pieces are sticking up, I think that's kind of cool too because it makes it look a bit more realistic, right? Now, after you've added glue to the back of each of these, you want to take your whole paper, flip it over, and then you want to make sure you rub the back of the paper, just like you did when you were rubbing that wet paper to create your print. This is kind of to help spread out that glue and make sure it's really attaching those flowers and leaves to your paper. Everything looks really well glued down. I'm really happy with how this looks. If you see a little bit of glue came out from the edges, you can just wipe that up with your finger or just let it dry, no problem. Now I'm gonna make sure I close my glue. If you're using a glue stick, make sure you snap the cap on. Now I'm gonna bring out my marker and add just a few more little details and add a few more leaves. So maybe right here, I'm gonna just do some wisps. Some little pieces of greenery that are sticking out. Do some more over here. This is just to kind of fill that space and have some fun with it. Maybe some kind of wavy greenery over here. Isn't that lovely? Maybe one more piece over here kind of cascading over the vase. Some little pieces are sticking out right there. Wherever you think a space needs a little bit more, add some more. And maybe I want to add another leaf right here. Can totally do that. Or another one right here. There we go. And there. The final thing that I want to do is add some color to my table, so maybe like it's sitting on a tablecloth. I'm going to turn my paper, makes it a little easier for me to color. I'm going to add just some loose color down here for the table. Okay, and then I want to color my background also. I want a lighter color for the background. I think I'm going to use a crayon when I color in this background. And I'm just going to go with a bright yellow. You can color your background any color you would like. I'm just going to use this bright yellow because it's going to make it kind of pop off the page. And there you have it. You have a beautiful collage that you have created of a bouquet of flowers inspired by the folk artist Heather Galler. Remember, for this project, we used variety, we used symmetry, and we used a bunch of different colors to make this project really interesting, bright, and fun. I think this would be a wonderful gift, maybe for your mom for Mother's Day, or maybe for your aunt or your grandmother or cousin, or maybe even your big sister, somebody that you think really deserves a lovely bouquet of flowers to have. Thank you so much for joining me for this lesson. Can't wait to see you guys again soon.